Anxious attachment and the critical parent. Is there a connection? Stay tuned. We'll find out. Hi, I'm Kirby. I am a specialist in trauma and attachment theory, and I shoot these videos every day to help people navigate through the most difficult times of life. And today we are talking about the anxious attachment style and whether or not there is a connection and probable cause by early childhood experiences with a very critical parent. Okay, so hopefully at this point, everyone understands what an attachment style is and the difference between anxious and avoidant. Now, most of the people tuning in, if you don't know my work yet, you're probably coming from the viewpoint of kind of pop psychology, maybe the book Attached, maybe stuff you've seen on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. I'm working at a different level than that. And I started in attachment theory about 8 years ago and really became so much of everything that I do. But eventually over time, working through my own junk and then beginning to help others with theirs, I began to see that there's this pattern there that underneath the style, the label, anxious, preoccupied, dismissive, avoidant, fearful, or disorganized, underneath the insecure attachment styles, there was this theme. And that theme is I have an extremely strong fear of certain situations. And once I started looking at it through that lens, a lot of things made sense that didn't make sense before. Attachment theory starts off really great and kind of helps us understand things. And the connection between early childhood experiences and kind of adult romantic experiences, there's a very, direct link there. But looking at it through this lens of fear really helps uncover even more. And we can begin to see that, the typical traits of an anxious attachment style are like external nexus of control, which is a fancy way of saying, like, I can't manage this by myself inside my own experience and my own regulating skills. I need someone outside to help me do that. Another trait of anxious attachment would be I need a constant stream of validation, approval, support, connection, closeness, etc. Someone with an anxious attachment style will be in a position where they feel very dysregulated, unsafe, or fearful when they are by themselves. When they are like, I'm here doing my own thing and I don't have anyone there to tell me I'm okay. And we'll hear stories about this, like just going to the mall by themselves and walking through the mall by themselves. And they will come back and report this like continuous bombardment of difficult, dysregulating thoughts. Like, what am I doing here? Am I doing this right? Like, who's looking at me? What are they thinking when they look at me? Oh, if I walk into the store by myself, there's the people that work here and they're looking at me as a singular man or woman who's walking in the store. I wonder what they're thinking of me, right? I've heard other stories of people that would say, I just simply walking down the street on a sidewalk for 200 meters is enough to cause a profound dysregulation inside me because I'm walking down the street and inside my brain there's this running narrative, intrusive thoughts, whatever you want to call it, that it's just like every car that drives by is seeing me. What are they thinking of me? They must be thinking I'm a jerk, or I'm a loser, or I'm lonely, or they don't like my fashion, or they don't like my haircut, or they don't like my this, or they don't like my that. Does this resonate with you? It resonated with me. Like, when I started hearing this other people, I'm like, oh my God, like I totally hear what you're saying. I definitely had times in my life when I was like that. Because if we have this program running under the surface, like basically it's not even under the surface, it's like right on the surface constantly, which is like, what are people thinking of me? And how is that going to affect me? And what kind of negative consequences are going to be? And et cetera, et cetera. If that's like running on the surface all the time, and then we take that person and put them in a romantic relationship where they're going to get consistent, validating energy, even if their partner isn't around, they know they have a partner, right? They know that this person is choosing me. And then their nervous system can regulate a little bit. Now, is being in that relationship actually a healing experience for that person? Is it actually helping them reach a point where that problem goes away? Or is it just giving them enough of a band-aid, surface level distraction cover story that they don't have to look at their self-doubt, their insecurity, their kind of like hyper-vigilant attention on the thoughts of other people? Because I don't think that's actually a healing experience. I think it could be over a long enough time period if that partner is ideally attuned, suited, same value structure, and they're very secure and good at handling conflict. Like if the partner has a lot of the traits of a secure attachment style, then yeah, I think that can turn into a healing environment. But that's not what usually happens. What usually happens is the anxious person chooses someone of high emotional intensity and that is going to fill them with this euphoric sense of like, wow, oh my God, I feel so connected. I feel so in love. I feel whatever, which I suggest and believe is a trauma response. Okay, but what does all this have to do with the critical parent? So the origins of the anxious attachment style, the cover story, the thing that we hear in the books and the Bobley work, and that's John Bobley and Mary Ainsworth, and then books like Attached, which they were involved in, and then later books, kind of has this story going that it's like the thing that creates an insecure, anxiously oriented attachment style in children is lack of consistency. Okay. And then the example that's usually given for that is that the parent is here one day and then they're not the next, right? The parent that kind of will swing into the child's life and then give a little bit of love and affection, and then they'll disappear and go away. Like maybe they're working, or maybe they've got another situation that they have to spend a lot of time on. Maybe they've got very intense hobbies. Maybe they've got an affair going on the side, who knows what. But the story that they use as an example is this idea of a parent that's kind of coming and going, and that child doesn't know if this parent is going to be there for them in this moment or not. And that creates an ongoing sense of kind of anxiety inside the nervous system of that baby that says, is this going to be the day that I get the love and care and attention that I'm craving? Or is this going to be another one of those days where I don't get any of that? And the anticipation of that creates this kind of feedback loop where the intensity builds and builds and builds inside their nervous system. And that encourages the brain to become more and more vigilant, which we call hypervigilance, in tracking more and more information around them to say, what are the various things, combinations, stimulus, sounds, smells, tastes, whatever. What are the various things around me that happened right before I got the love and attention that I wanted? Because that's the way brain works. If it happens at the same time in the same place, there must be a connection. So it draws this line of associative connection. And so that baby's brain is tracking all this information and trying to figure out what are the cause and effect relationships that will lead to a point where I get the love and attention I want? What are the cause and effect relationships that will lead to the situation where I'm going to be disappointed and feel excluded or rejected or abandoned or any of that stuff? And this leads to, literally, we call it hypervigilance. Like, it is a degree of vigilance that is above normal. It is so far above normal, it's going to have its own kind of class, and it's the hyper class, right? Way above and beyond. I'm super guilty of this. And that is frequently associated with an anxious attachment style because the attachment system, subconscious, inner child, whatever we want to call it, is using hypervigilance as a tool to try to achieve safety. Because it's like, if I can know all the various things that are going on around me, and I know which ones will kind of lead in a roundabout fashion to getting the love, prioritization, attention, desire, everything else that I am craving, then I'm gonna do what I can to get on that track, to bring that closer, to do that path instead of these others, right? If I can just, sit here quietly and eat my food all the way to the end and then go to bed on time and not speak up and not complain and do as I'm told and blah, 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 then I'll get this moment where dad comes in and he holds me and he is proud of me and he's, loving and affectionate and telling me I'm a good boy and all that kind of stuff, right? These are the dynamics that are going on inside the brain. But if I do all those things and then dad doesn't come in that night to give me that stuff, then I'm just like, oh, well, I guess those things are not the ones that will lead to the eventual conclusion I'm wanting. So maybe just that doesn't work. Maybe I need to try something else. And it's like, oh, is this one going to work? Is this one going to work? Is that one going to work? And at the same time, we've got all these situations where like, oh, well, screaming out and, throwing my food on the floor and, being fidgety or whatever, those definitely lead to situations where mom or dad are angry with me and they're giving me that angry face and they're acting very harsh and, putting me down and strong actions and strong voice and strong movement. And it's scary. And so if I do these things, scary stuff happens. And if I do those other things, and sometimes good stuff happens. And so it begins to create this sense of anxiety around the idea of like, what if the things that are happening around me are the stuff that leads to the bad situations, the bad feelings? I better not do this because mom and dad will be angry with me. I better not do that. I better not even be around that, right? If I'm around the dog when he's barking, then bad things are going to happen. If I'm around the food that is on the floor and it's making mess, there's going to be anger and disconnection and judgment and criticism and shame and all that other kind of stuff. I don't want to even be around those things. This creates anxiety, right? It is an inner sense of resistance, hesitation. It's really a fear. It creates this inner sense of fear that if I'm around that thing, that event, that stimulus, and when that stimulus comes over here and bumps into mom or dad, as soon as they witness it, there's going to be hell to pay. And then there's going to be consequences, and those consequences feel horrible, and I don't want to face those consequences, so what can I do to prevent this from happening? Okay, we've just created a situation where it's like I've added a multitude of things to that child's fear matrix and fear response system. And I've also created this kind of false belief that they're responsible for a greater and greater degree of situations, because as long as the parents are playing in on this and they're like, yeah, they really do get angry and critical and shaming and blah, 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 when there's, the peas are smashed on the floor or whatever. Like if that really does happen, that child's brain is learning. That is a true reaction. That is a true reflection of your attitudes and response patterns as a parent. That child's anxiety, trying to prevent criticism, blame, punishment, etc., those experiences feel horrible. That child is trying to avoid feeling horrible. And if that child builds a hypervigilant awareness and a building sense of anxiety and self-loathing, which is oftentimes connected, that is a true reflection of their experience. And if you're the parent in that situation, how shitty does that feel? A lot, right? Like, wait, you're telling me a lot of people don't like this, but the ones that can see the truth of this are really the superstars. If you know parents like that or you have parents like that, please give them a hug and congratulate them for getting past the hard part. Yeah, but the parents that don't like this are just saying, wait a second, you're telling me that like I don't like messes. I don't like it when the food is smashed on the floor. I don't like having to take extra time out of my day to clean up, crusty mashed potatoes off the floor and out of the corners of the cabinets and all that other crap, right? I don't want to be doing all this extra stuff. That feels nasty for me. And when it happens, I get frustrated and I get angry and I get short-tempered and then I lash out and you're telling me that that dysregulation on my part is creating anxiety in my child? Yes. 100% yes. We've seen it too many times. I mean, I'm sure there is a rare occasion because, there's a lot more happening in life than just mashed potatoes falling on the floor. I'm sure there are situations where this is not the way that it plays out, and hooray. But if we're betting on odds, like if this were a casino and we're betting on odds, the house is going to win on that one. The parent that has high propensity for dysregulation, anger, fear, aggression, shame, blame, criticism, frustrated, short-tempered teaching moments, raising a voice, harsh actions, those situations massively increase the likelihood of the witnessing child developing an insecure attachment style. And I'm not sure the numbers between anxious and avoidant end of the spectrum. It kind of doesn't matter. But okay, we're talking about anxious today, so we're just gonna, I don't know, we'll just say 50%, right? It's probably higher than that. It's probably slightly higher to anxious because it's a survival reaction to threat, and the avoidant one is a slightly different mechanism. But let's just say it's like 60%, right? I'm sure somebody out there has the real numbers. So the parent that's in that place, why is this happening, right? Or why is the whole dynamic happening? And the whole dynamic is happening because the child's anxiety is building in response to uncertainty, unpredictability. Am I in a safe place or am I not? If I don't feel safe right now, but I did feel safe at some point, what is the criteria? What situations happened that led to me feeling safe? And what are the situations that led to me feeling unsafe? And now, if that's something that's going on, I'm always going to gravitate towards safety. And so I'm going to be worried about the things I don't trust that safety is paramount. I don't trust or believe that safety is going to be a universal truth in my life. It's a sometimes truth in my life. That creates anxiety. And so the parent that shows up with criticism, blame, harsh language, shaming, blaming, whatever, that is definitely a situation of unsafety. That child will not feel safe in this situation. It's a tragedy that parents don't understand this dynamic. It's a tragedy that all of society doesn't understand this dynamic. That safety is something that is needed in order for a child to develop a healthy attachment system. And then over time, you have to start from the place of safety. And then over time, you have to progressively take them out of that space of comfort and increase the degree of challenge and stress that they're facing over time. But the place of unquestionable safety needs to always be there. Because if you tear someone out of their safe space and say, we're going to give you all these challenges that you now have to face, and then they do their best to face them, and maybe they fail and maybe they're successful, who knows? But all of those things are going to create a sense of internal stress inside their nervous system. They need a place that they can go where they can discharge that, where they can say, I don't need to perform right now. I don't need to be trying. I don't need to be accomplishing and overcoming and facing. I need a moment to rest. And I've been stunned how many people I've met that don't think that that's a requirement. And they say, no, be strong, emotional hardship. And I'm like, F you. Go to the gym and lift your 200 kilogram weights over and over again until the end of time. Literally, you will destroy your body doing so. Because if you do not give your body a chance to rest between stressful events, it does not have a chance to repair, reknit, and increase strength and capacity. This is the same idea. This creates a very strong argument to say that one of the driving forces behind anxious attachment style is a lack of safe space after stressful events, that they were not given adequate amount of time and safety between stressful events so that their nervous system had a chance to knit their experience together, process what was unprocessed, discharge stress, and put it together in a way that they learn a lesson that increases their capacity for more stress in the future. That's the ideal situation. I've said this in quite a few different internet forums, but I'll say it here because, hey, it fits that the goal of parenting is twofold. One is to create a situation in the first 24 to 36 months where that child escapes that window with a secure attachment system. That's goal number one. And there's a lot of things wrapped up in that goal, but it is absolutely achievable, and we have all the information we need to achieve that goal and to help facilitate people in achieving that goal. That's goal number one. Goal number two is now, from now on, until that child fully individuates as a self-contained autonomous adult, my job as a parent is to create a never-ending sequence of slightly stressful events. Events that push that child right into that space between comfort and overwhelm. It's a little bit stressful, maybe a lot stressful, but definitely not overwhelming. And to create an environment sequentially over and over and over again, where that child is pushed into that place where they have to be like, oh my God, I don't know what to do here. I don't know what I'm capable of. I don't know what's threatening here and what's not. This is scary, et cetera, et cetera. And then that you go into that for a moment in a controlled way. This is one of the responsibilities that the parents in the adult community, the tribal adult community, has. And then that child then returns to their place of unquestioning safety. And they say, wow, what was that? Like, that was scary. I've never played soccer before. I've never performed in front of people before. I've never done a solo before. Like, there's something about this. Like, I had to do this math problem that I didn't think I knew how to do, but I just took what I have inside my brain and I did my best. And let's see what happened there. And it's like, oh, I got a C. Okay. Like, obviously the stuff that I have in here was not enough to get an excellent score on that test. Maybe I want to learn some new things and practice so that I can go hit that again. Right? Each time we go through this process of being in the zone of stress, but below the zone of overwhelm, and we come back to a place of unquestionable felt safety, like your emotional home, every time we do that, and we rest for some period of time, it could be minutes, it could be hours, it could be days, the capacity that my nervous system has to face that kind of stress increases. My resilience goes up. My ability to hold myself in the space of stress and not overwhelm increases. I can do it longer and I can do it more intensely by a little bit. Sometimes the leaps are a lot, but we can count on it being at least a little bit. So go face that stress and now come back home. Go face that stress, come back home. The resilience of that child will go up and up and up. And as resilience goes up, anxiety goes down. 100%. There's no other way that works. Anxiety is a worry. It is a miscalibrated fear about the potential nasty things that will happen and the discomfort that I will face if I have to face them. And I want to control my environment or control my internal responses or whatever to try to prevent myself from being in a situation of discomfort. That's what anxiety is. But if I do the work ahead of time so that my resilience goes up, 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 well, guess what? That situation that was incredibly uncomfortable a year ago is now a little bit uncomfortable or not uncomfortable at all. Or I've reframed it in my mind and I'm just like, oh, I understand why that felt uncomfortable to me. And now I've dealt with that. And now it's like, that's no big thing. And now I'm not worried about it. Anxiety goes down. This is 100% absolute correlation. As capacity for facing stress increases, anxiety will decrease. And this includes all phobias, fears, and very likely traumas. So, if we're going back to the original question, anxious attachment style and the critical parent, is there a connection? 1000% yes. 1000% yes. And as I've worked with people for the last 5 years, this has been incredibly consistent to the point, this actually just happened a couple days ago. I'm working with a new client, never met him before. Like, he came and listened to one of my lectures once, and then he signed up for a one-on-one session. And now we're going through all these various things, talking about life, and I'm asking him questions and relationships and blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, and I keep seeing this sense of anxious drive that's underneath. It's just this buzzing displeasure, this buzzing worry and concern and heaviness about, like, I can't feel comfortable in this kind of situation or that kind of environment because I'm just so worried about what's going to happen. And it's like, okay. So we explore that a little while longer. We go through a bunch more things, and we begins to kind of hone in. And it's just like, whoa, but we have these stories of this period in your life, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, playing sports or whatever. And it's like, what was that like? It's like, oh, that was my happy place, blah, 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 whatever, da, 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 da. And then it gets to the point, it's like, oh, well, that was the time that after my parents split and my father wasn't in my life anymore. He wasn't in my life during that time period. Like, okay, wait a second. So what we're saying is that, like, during the periods of time that your father is definitely present, you have this building sense of anxiety and dread about life. And that's before and after. But we've got this window in the middle where your parents separated and he disappeared for a while. And then during that period of time, you actually achieved happiness and joy while engaging in some kind of physical activity. I'm going to guess your father was very judgmental, harsh criticism, black and white thinking, would not let you get off. Like if you made any misstep at all, he would probably jump on that like a dog on a bone. And this person's eyes just goes like big, 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 big. And they're like, how did you know? I'm like, I know because this dynamic is so consistent. There's many other traits that go in that, but it's kind of a fun story that just keeps demonstrating how efficient and accurate understanding attachment dynamics serves us in understanding our own issues in life and the motivations, the true motivations underneath our behaviors. So there's 100%, 1000% connection between critical, harsh, black and white, punishment-oriented, judgmental parenting. Parents that live in that space will very, very likely, put it this way, they're guaranteed to create someone with an insecure attachment style, and it's very high likelihood they'll create someone with an anxious attachment style. If it's not anxious, it'll probably be disorganized. And if it's not that, then it'll be avoidant. So there's a bit here that I want to jump back to before I close this up. And that's this idea that as resilience goes up, anxiety goes down. And in a lot of this time, we've been talking about, I hope you can hear these like little children in the background. It's so cute to have them out in the field, chopping wood and finding bugs and doing playful stuff while I'm sitting here talking about childhood development. That's so adorable. Anyway, as resilience goes up, anxiety goes down. And we're talking about all this in the context of the formative attachment years for a young child in reference to a critical parent. But there's another angle here that's super, super important that you see before we close this down. And that is my own relationship with my own inner child. What is my capacity for stress? How much anxiety do I have that dominates my life? And then we look at that connection and say, well, I'm super good at handling stress. If it's like a business meeting or a math assignment or a computer programming task or whatever, like if it's some kind of like ritualized, formulaic, conscious mind, rational approach, I can handle lots of stress and tension in those situations. But if you put me in a situation where I'm at risk of social rupture, people being upset with me, rejection, ostracism from the social unit, my friends or tribe or whatever, you put me in that situation and I don't have capacity for stress at all. Be like, is there a connection between that and your anxiety? 100% yes. And then we can say, okay, well, in this other model, we're talking about the harsh critical parent that is black and white thinking and judgmental, and you are so stupid. Why don't you get this right? And blah, blah, blah. And how much of that sounds like negative inner dialogue? I can raise my hand. Raise your hand if that's you. If you have harsh, critical, judgmental, black and white, punishment-oriented response to your own iniquities, your own failures, your own mistakes, you are the harsh parent. Who'd you learn it from? You learned that from your own harsh parent, right? And that's how the generational curses progress. We don't need anything wild, mystical, and spiritual to watch the transmission of insecure attachment style through generations, because we have this right here. You're a young child. You see a parent around you that uses harshness, criticism, judgment, shaming, all that jazz. That's their primary survival mechanism about dealing with a life that is unpredictable and sometimes does not go the way they like. That's their primary mechanism. You as a child passively absorb that, and that becomes your primary mechanism. And then you become an adult, parent is long gone, and now you've got that harsh, critical, black and white, judgmental, blah, blah, blah in your relationship to self. And your anxiety is high. Connection? Yes. Absolutely. Do not even question that. There's absolutely a connection there. So the way that we help assure that the next generation of children can escape that window without an anxious attachment style is to figure out my own issues so that I am not the black and white, harsh, critical, judgmental parent. That I have a certain flexibility in life and an openness for things that are unexpected, for things that maybe don't align with me right now, but they might in the future, right? This requires maturity, calmness, groundedness, stability, security. These are all things that will create a sense of safety. I cannot create safety it is impossible for me to create safety if the threat of my judgment, punishment, and shame is ever present. Does that make sense? Do I need to repeat that one? It is impossible for me to create an environment of safety if there is an ever-present threat of my judgment, shame, criticism, punishment. Not possible. I might be able to go, I know there's people going to fight me on this one. I might be able to go over here and use all my masculine, strong-armed, critical, judgmental crap, blah, 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 against those people out there in order to defend my home safe space, right? This is kind of the flavor of masculine energy from, 100,000 years ago. So that's an appropriate thing to basically I'm going to bring all this nastiness to the outer edges of my domain, of my castle, and use that to protect the inside of my castle. But once I come to the inside of my castle, this needs to be a place of unquestioning safety for everyone present. And if I can do that, if I can negotiate between those two things, inside the walls, inside the container of safety, it is the container of my home, it is unquestioning safety, and you know that I'm here for you. I'll do anything to support you, to care for you, you will get no shame or blame from me in my presence. I'm here to facilitate your growth into a stellar, spectacular adult that we will all be joyful to be around? Yes. But yet I have this monster combatant, some people call it dark masculine. I have that kind of energy, and that's for the outsiders. That's where I go defend the walls of this safe space. That's an appropriate reaction. But to bring that criticism here to this child right here because he or she is not behaving the way that I want them to, and I'm going to bring why are you so stupid? Why are you being like that? This is ridiculous. Why are you overreacting? Why are you having an emotional outburst again? Blah, 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 right? That is shit that I heard my entire childhood. It is shit I heard from the parents of my friends. It is shit that I've heard from a multitude of real live adults towards their children in real time. I'm sitting next to them on a bus or a train or traveling through China or something. And it's just like, and I'm like, I'm a stranger. You're a stranger. I'm not here. There's no reason you should ever listen to me. I have no business. But I do understand attachment dynamics. I do understand childhood development. And I do know for a fact that moment is creating a degree of stress in that child that is beyond overwhelming. You have just eradicated safety in your relationship with that child. And what do you think is going to happen because of that? Where do you think that child's going to go when they're terrified, scared, confused, not knowing what to do? They're sure as hell not going to come to you, right? That makes so much sense, and it is so consistent with the data we see. It blows my mind that people don't live by that as just an absolute truth and say, yeah, like if I show up with that kind of energy to a child, I am pushing them away and they're never coming back. Okay. And maybe that's the way you want to operate. Okay, sure. Just know it. Yeah. All right. We covered a lot of stuff today. Hope it was helpful for you guys. I wish I'd had this information when I was in my darkest times. It really would have helped me put a lot together. I wish I'd had this information when I was 7 and then 13 and then 17 and then 23. Like, I wish I'd had all this information available to me at that point in time. And I could have been like, oh, this is what's going on. This is why I feel this way all the time. This anxiety and worry and hypervigilance that lives inside me is a reaction to the stressors around me and kind of less than ideal parenting skills. And if I want to have a future where I have agency, control, and joy in my life, and like really delicious connections with wonderful, beautiful people, I need to start doing my inner work to rectify this fear and get over it. But I didn't have that. So I just stayed in that anxious loop for years and years and decades and decades and decades. 0 stars. I do not recommend. Don't choose that path. Okay, cool. Thank you so much. I care about you guys. Those people out there watching, sending comments all the time is just astonishing. Like, I truly love this to the bottom of my heart, and I do it for free. I do it for free all the time. Getting the feedback from you guys is incredible, and I feel it right to the bottom of my heart. So thank you so much. If you've got any questions, message me. If you've got any speaking gigs, workshops, conventions, corporate retreats, whatever, shoot me a message. I would love to come teach this stuff and get in a one-on-one to help you guys with whatever one-on-one with you or the group work for the bigger organizations. I love that stuff. So if that's you, hit me up. I'd love to come help. Have a great day. Peace.